We're going to go ahead and walk you guys through 12 steps that we implement to truly help a ton of people be able to get more offers accepted. And we really focus on our offer to acceptance ratio. We all kind of had a very enjoyable 3 to 4 month period there where we submitted an offer and there wasn't 10 others. I don't know how your guys' market is. We had a really fun October, November, and December. It was nice. You could submit an offer. Listing agents were being respectful again. They were calling us, asking for feedback. They acted like we were decent human beings. It was awesome. And in the minute that the inventory started plummeting, they all became jerks again. And everybody started being bullies. And now you couldn't get a hold of anybody. And anytime you asked them a question, they acted like you're an idiot. So we're like, oh, crap. So we're getting right back to these days. We're getting back to the days where we're going to have multiple offers. And sure enough, here in Orange County, we're watching our inventory and our days on market plummet. And even though the demand is very muted in comparison to the 3-year average, muted demand met with muted inventory still creates an insane seller's market. So that's where we're at. I'm sure a lot of you guys are starting to experience some of the same. And what we did back in 2020, end of 2020, 2021, was we got insanely intentional about the steps that we were taking to get offers accepted. So we started having to track, and it was like back then the average in Orange County, because there was less than 900 homes on the market. We have a population of millions and millions and millions of people. So it was just absolutely insanity to get an offer accepted. The average agent was submitting 24 offers to get 1 acceptance. And we became very intentional and hired a virtual assistant to start tracking the offers that we were submitting. Because it was one thing to build the perfect template of an offer that would be submitted, but it was another thing to see if the agents were actually doing it and were they submitting offers the way that we were instructing them to submit them. Because if they were, they won, and if they didn't, they lost. So we were tracking, one, what percentage over ask price was being accepted in the average, how many contingencies were being applied to the offers that were getting accepted, what were the average timeframes of those contingencies being accepted. And by the end of each week, we would really be able to evaluate and audit what was working and what wasn't. And it was 12% over ask price. It was no appraisal, no loan. It was 15 to 21 day close of escrow periods, even with financing, with free 2-week rent backs. There was all these things, but at the end of the day, when we averaged it all out, we knew exactly what the avatar of a winning offer was, and we made sure to continue writing offers that way. So we got from 24 to 1 acceptance down to 2.7. So these tools really do work. I heard it from my own office. I was hearing it from people all over the place. The agents who got comfortable having these more difficult, more firm conversations with their sellers were the agents who continued to grow in those years when everybody else was, excuse my language, but getting their ass kicked. So you do want to be intentional and understand, I'm going to give you a whole list of tools, and you're not going to have to use every single one. But our job is to make sure that, one, you have mastery of each of those tools and how to use them. You know when to use them, because when you have access to them and you know how to use them, you'll know which ones you need to apply in order to be effective during the negotiation. Because there's going to be some sellers that, or some buyers, for the right house, they'll be willing to throw the entire tool chest at it. And then there's going to be other homes where it's not nearly as important. Yeah, the home will work, but it's not necessarily the perfect one. And so for those, you get to pick and choose. But one of the most important pieces to this is if you guys are waiting for your client to find the perfect home, for you to have this conversation of what it takes to be competitive in this market, you're making a huge tactical error. And that's what the vast majority of agents do. We play Vanna White, we show houses and we open doors, and we really don't do a whole lot more to add value to the consumer's experience. And sitting people down for a strategy session to where you can actually create an environment that's appropriate to educate people and to help them understand these terms. Because guys, I'll tell a bunch of agents how to do this stuff and they'll be confused and they'll have questions. So you can only imagine how a consumer would feel when they're trying to submit these offers. When you're telling this to them for the first time, they're about to put pen to paper, and you're terrifying them. So the best time in the world to give somebody this education is when there's no emotional attachment to a property, when they don't have their spouse telling, if you lose this house, I'm going to kill you, where you don't have the kids excited because they're envisioning putting their beds in their rooms and the pool in the backyard, and they finally have a like, we don't want them to emotionally be attached to a property when we're trying to educate them on the strategies that we're going to use to make them a successful buyer in this market. And if you guys are meeting clients, like, our entire job is to make sure that we are magnifying ourselves to our clients so that they want to chase us and you don't have to chase them. And the Vanna White realtors are the ones who are going to disappear, the ones who do nothing other than show property, and they don't know how to imply strategy, and they don't know how to advise clients, and they don't know how to take control of a negotiation and advise and consult their clients in a way that's going to get them the results that they're looking for. Doing this in a strategy session is the time to have these conversations with the client. And has anybody slowed you down to take the time to show you what it takes to be competitive in this limited inventory environment? And the vast majority of your clients will flat out just say, no. Fantastic. Let's go ahead and schedule 15 to 20 minutes. Sometimes after work, I can come meet with you. We can meet at a Starbucks, or you can come into the office so I can sit you down. And we really are just going to slow them down on the front end so that we can load the cannon and ensure they have the ability to pull the trigger and use the right tools when that perfect home comes up. Because we see what happens. Clients, we advise them to do this. They say no, we kind of drop it. Then they find that perfect home. And then we're all scrambling, trying to find the financing, trying to find a lender who can perform fast enough. And at that point, by the time we finally get all of our ducks lined up, they've lost their home. And guys, that is, I tell my office, if that happens, that is our fault. We need to be firm enough with our clients to help them understand the importance of taking these steps early on so that you can be their protector to ensure they don't end up losing a home because you are scared to push them to do the things that they need to do. So I'm going to start going through some of these different steps. And the big one, like, there's going to be 12 here. And if you guys need me to slow down on any of them, please definitely let me know. We use a company called HomeLight, and it's not going to be for every single client. It's how you can turn your finance buyers into cash offers. And they have multiple different programs to where you can, if you use their financing company, as long as you do it within a certain time frame, that they'll actually offer you the program for only 1%. So it's a relatively affordable option. But you can turn your finance buyers into cash buyers if you have access to HomeLight. You have access to, every different state, there's different companies that do this. But seek out the companies that are giving you the ability to turn your finance offers into cash. For us, and back then when the market wasn't appreciating, nobody wanted to do this. But back when our market was appreciating by almost 10% per month, it was worth it to pay an extra 2 to 3% to secure that type of financing, because one, a cash offer typically will get accepted for anywhere between 1.5% to 2.5% less than a finance. But two, we could make sure that we were able to secure the perfect home for them earlier on, because the homes were appreciating. The exact same house next month was going to be worth an extra 10%. Now, we are not experiencing that type of appreciation yet, but as our average days on market gets down into the low 20s, we're absolutely going to see that extreme upward pressure on pricing, and it can save your client money to get ahead of the game, do this up front, so they're not going to get eaten up by the appreciation that the market inevitably is going to see. Number two, when you do a partial or a full release of a deposit, this is one that people get crazy worried about and they get scared. Dependent on what your market is, our market on average, you do a 3% initial deposit. And the reason that we do 3% is because the maximum amount that can be awarded to somebody in any type of suit is 3%. Liquidated damages are difficult to assess. So they flat out said, in any type of disagreement, contractual disagreement, or any type of lawsuit, the maximum reward that they'll provide for liquidated damages is 3%. Doesn't mean that your initial deposit can only be 3%. You as a buyer can absolutely offer 5. You as a buyer can offer 6, 7, 8. You can offer whatever it is that you feel you want to offer. But the whole strategy, and we all know this now because everybody started doing this. When we were submitting offers, you would waive the loan, waive the appraisal, but then you do a 10-day or a 17-day inspection period. In our market, the typical is 15 days now is what they moved it to. You can waive the loan, waive the appraisal. That 15-day inspection period is a get out of jail free card. So you waive the loan, you waive the appraisal, But at the end of the day, you're going to ensure that you get the appraisal completed within your get out of jail free zone. And you're going to make sure that you get the loan fully approved within your get out of jail free zone. So anybody who was using that strategy, they were making it non-contingent, but we all knew they were still going to have the ability to back out for any reason that they wanted, because their investigation period was what was going to allow them to do that. So the best way for us as a listing agent to protect and mitigate against that strategy for our clients is make them release a partial deposit. Because in the event that the property doesn't appraise, in the event that the loan doesn't get approved, in the event that they don't like the HOA results, the buyer is going to have to make the decision to walk away from whatever partial deposit that they've chosen to walk away from. But if you are trying to show somebody that you are a serious and committed buyer, you'll release a portion of that deposit. And I know in some markets, it's really, really inexpensive. I know there's some markets where they're telling me their typical is like $1,500. In ours, it's 3%. Our average price point is $1 million. So people put $30,000 deposits. So we'll release, dependent on the client, $5,000, $7,500, $10,000, dependent on how serious they are. Because we've all had the clients say, I don't care, so long as there's no major problems with this home, I have the ability to stomach whatever these repair costs could potentially be. And we also know that the average, and again, there's going to be certain houses where this would be a very scary strategy. So that's when you'll put that tool back in the tool chest and choose not to use it. But if it was a home built in 2020, 2018, 2017, you've gone through the property, you've investigated, it looks like there's no deferred maintenance. We know that typically those homes don't come back with major damage. They don't come back with major repairs. And you just got to make sure that the client is moving forward with an amount that in the event there is a major issue, that they would have the ability and the willingness to walk away from it without hurting themselves or their ability to purchase again in the future. So that one particular term, I'd put an asterisk by it, because what we know is people use these strategies within the contract of not making it contingent, but fully leaving it contingent. And then here, the way that ours work, when you can go ahead and make it a 3-day or a 5-day inspection period. We know that 90% of listing agents don't order the HOA documents until they open escrow. And HOA documents, at least here, they take anywhere between 7 to 14 days to get the HOA documents. So regardless of the inspections, they can't deliver the documentation. So we were having people that would waive the inspection, waive the loan, waive the appraisal, knowing that the HOA docs were going to come in. And when those HOA documents came in, they couldn't force you to remove the contingency because they didn't have the required disclosures to provide. So people were accepting a no contingency offer, knowing that they would have the ability to review the HOA docs and say, I don't like that, we're going to cancel, we want our money back. And they were allowed to do it. So the non-refundable deposit really is going to be a way that ensures that you're not using that strategy against a client. And we're 100, like we enjoyed doing this back in 2020 to 2021 because everybody wasn't wise to it. But now we've all already come out of that market, and hopefully enough of you guys have attended webinars like this where we all learn the same strategies. And now we got to just be a little bit more cautious and a little bit more protective of our sellers. And that deposit is going to be a great way for you to do it. Number 3 is going to be triangulating a connection. This is by far one of the most underutilized steps. In our office, we have a rule, and it's if you're going to submit an offer, you have to say, does anybody know Lori Davis? Does anybody know Peter? Does anybody know Michelle? Does anybody know Brad? We want to ask, does anybody know them? Because we all know we like to work with agents who we know, like, and trust. And if you don't have a team, utilizing your brokerage, hopefully you guys have some type of brokerage communication thread that you can communicate in. If you're part of any local masterminds, if you know of any other big agents in the area, like taking the time to actually go reach out and saying, hey, does anybody know Shelby? When you ask these questions and somebody says, yeah, I have actually a great relationship. You guys, we had a property that we listed yesterday. The home has already had 4 offers on it. The agent's phone will not stop blowing up. He does not have time to respond to them, doesn't have time to coordinate everything. And then we as buyer's agents get really mad at him because we say, oh, what a jerk, he's being an ass. Or it's because his phone is ringing off the hook and he simply doesn't have the time because he's a solo agent, and say he didn't have our team. He could just be a solo agent that doesn't have a team, that doesn't have support, that doesn't have enough people to help them make it. But we immediately just say that the listing agent's being a jerk. Well, maybe they're just insanely busy and inundated, as all of us are when we list a new property in this market. And it's like, we got to do whatever it is that we can do to create a relationship and to create a connection, the same way that you're supposed to do with our clients, the buyers and the sellers, build rapport in a way that's going to create a wow moment. And triangulating the connection. One of my favorite things in the world to do is get on Instagram and find out, do we have any mutual friends on Instagram? And when you see those mutual friends, it's not always going to be a realtor. Booney's on here. He had somebody to where a girl that he grew up with, went through elementary, middle, and high school together, was a great friend of that agent. So he ended up reaching out to her and saying, how do you know this person? She said, oh my gosh, I think it was somebody who dated an ex, or there was some weird connection. But anyway, they made the connection. They said, hey, there's a guy named Brian Barber. He's a really good friend of mine. He's got a great, he's an amazing agent. He's got some clients who are friends of mine, and they're obsessed with this house. If you could please help them out. So by going into Facebook and going into LinkedIn and going into Instagram, the best and easiest way to triangulate, do you know of anybody? But you actually have to be disciplined enough to go try to triangulate that connection each and every time. And it's like, and if you don't have the connection, and if you don't have a way to open up that door, you guys, agents are some of the easiest people in the world to please. You walk into their open house, you show up with some crumble cookies. You show up early and you help them. Like, and I get it. People will look at this and they'll be like, oh, well, that's stupid. How often do you have a house that you know you're going to see? They say no showings till the open house. And we all know the reason that the listing agent is doing that is because they want to get all the buyers, because they know buyers in this market want to double end deals. And the buyers want the agent to double end the deal because it dramatically increases the likelihood of them getting their offer accepted. Here in California, you can do that. I don't know about your guys' market, but they intentionally will do it so you can't see the house. You have to wait until Saturday and Sunday for the open because it's the easiest way for them to start swiping your clients from you. So you show up a little bit early and you go help them put up open house signs. You can go show up with some crumble cookies, show up with some donuts, show up with some coffee, do something to stand out. And it's by far, and like, this is no hard skill. This is a soft skill, but when you can string these soft skills together, building rapport with the agent, creating a wow moment, creating a separation between you and the other 75 agents who are all submitting offers on this property, who's going to be the one that stands out? Because I can guarantee you, if I'm doing an open house and you bring me some crumble cookies, I'm going to like you because you've done something and it was nice. And then when you walk into the open house, say, oh my God, who did your photography? Lori, your photography is incredible. Who's your photographer that you use? It could look like it was done with the 2003 Motorola Razr, but compliment them. When you walk in and you talk about their staging, oh my God, this is so impressive. When you see their brochures and their flyers that agents like to geek out over, impress them. Like, say how impressive it is. Give them compliments, build rapport the same way that we're supposed to with clients. It is so incredibly easy to make somebody like you by just giving them, since hopefully you can find a sincere way to compliment them. And if you can't, they're probably, it was a terrible representation, but then go compliment their shoes or go compliment something that's going to help you build rapport and be a likable person and be the person that when you submit that offer, they're going to remember you. They're going to remember your name because you showed up, you helped them put up the open house signs, you complimented them, you brought them the crumble cookies. And you say, Lori, hey, this is Colton. I'm the one that brought you the crumble cookies. Hey, I told you about my clients. They're in love with this property. They've been waiting for this thing to finally hit the market. Turns out they love it. They saw it. They're completely in love. I am the agent that you want to go into escrow with. I promise you, these are the clients who are fully prepared for what it takes to be competitive in this market. This is not their first rodeo. They understand that they're not going to be nitpicky on the inspections. We're not going to try to beat you guys up during the renegotiations. We've got a lender who I have a track record with, whether you do or you don't. I've got a lender who I've worked with for the last 5 years. They're incredible. They perform on time. They're unbelievably communicative. And then you as the agent, because then you'll be like, well, I don't want to lie. Then don't. Go call the lender and make sure, find out their track record, make sure what they have the ability to perform in. Go find out all those details to make sure whatever you guys put to paper, because we do want to protect our reputations, that you have the ability to deliver on it. However, things happen and you go and you tour that beautiful home that they're in love with, and it turns out that it's a total piece of crap. Does that happen? Yes. Is it acceptable for us to be a little bit more turned off to the property after we've identified mold or we've identified the entire thing is due to be retrofitted? that the roof has deferred maintenance and now due for replacement. We just got to get our foot in the door. And it's amazing to me how many agents will submit an offer without ever calling, without ever texting, without ever, like the way that they draft the email, they do offer, here's an offer for 123 Elm Street. And you might as well just put a middle finger emoji with it. Like there's no warm welcome, there's no introduction, there's no explanation of who you are, what your track record is, the lender's track record, the clients and their experience in the home buying process. Like guys, we're auditioning for a job and half of us show up half asleep, disheveled, with no presentation, no professionalism. And then we're shocked when nobody responded to us. And then you'll see agents who are submitting offers with the low balls. And guys, we know that typically in our market, I don't know about yours, people will typically only respond to maybe the top 3 offers, top 4. And we're waiting for a response. And then we're shocked when we didn't get it. And it's like, we got to make sure that we're preparing our clients for, hey, I completely understand and I back any price that you want to put on paper and present to this seller. However, I'm not doing my job if I don't explain to you what the most likely outcome is going to be. Typically in this scenario, you're going to have multiple offers. We want to make sure that we are presenting in a way that's actually going to get us a response. And I see so many agents letting their clients tell them what they need to submit at. And you're like, well, what do you want to submit at? Well, we want to do 20,000 under ask price. And the amount of agents who are just like, okay, great. Put it on paper, then they get rejected. And now they're mad at you because you didn't give them any advice. You didn't consult them. You didn't tell them what to expect. And we have to tread lightly because there's a clients who think that you're not going to back them and you're not supporting them and that you're not negotiating for them. So we got to be tactful in how we communicate with them. And I see Lori here, so I'm going to keep picking on her. Lori, I completely understand that that's how you want to submit. And if that's the price that you're comfortable with, I will make sure that I put my full negotiating power behind it. However, I'm not doing my job if I don't prepare you for the most likely outcome. In this market, there's very limited inventory. There's multiple offers. People are submitting cash, limited contingency, 15-day close of escrows, free 30-day rent back. I'm not doing my job unless I prepare you that this offer most likely won't even be responded to. Because what sellers are doing just for the sake of saving time and stress and frustration is they'll just pick the top 3, respond to those offers and reject the rest. And I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't prepare you for that's a potential outcome. So if you're okay with that being the outcome, and if losing this home sits well with you, let's go ahead and put it to paper. And then you'll see them kind of wake up and you'll see them either get more committed, they'll get more motivated, they'll increase the strength of their offer, or they won't. And this will be the training lesson that they've learned, because when the bitch slap comes, they all of a sudden wake up and realize, shoot, Lori finally prepared me. She did everything that she could. But where clients get mad is when we don't prepare them that slap is coming. And that's when I see agents lose clients all the time, because you didn't do anything to prepare me. That's your job. I'm the client. I'm allowed to be unreasonable. I'm allowed to have unreasonable expectations, and I'm allowed to have buyer behavior. I want to lowball, because how far delayed are most people's expectations of the market? 3 to 6 months. 3 to 6 months ago, they could get away with this stuff. Today, they can't. This market has been such whiplash that we need to help people and do a better job of preparing them, because I'm seeing agents lose clients all the time because they simply didn't prepare them. So we got to be way more aggressive in how we do this. We got to make sure that we're going and auditioning with the listing agents. We're trying to stand out, because when we have the conversation and I reach out to Lori, what does everybody say? Hey, Lori, what's your highest offer? That is the dumbest question. Has that question ever gotten anybody a favorable response? And I know there's going to be people going, oh, that somebody told me. Totally. That does occasionally happen, but it's very, very rare. Instead of asking a question that you know you're not going to get a favorable response and it's just going to be met with something condescending, instead, Lori, help me better understand what the perfect offer would have to look like for both you and your seller. And then shut up. Because we assume that it's always the highest price. We assume that it's the fastest close of escrow. We assume that it's X, Y, and Z. But my elderly clients are terrified of having to be out of this property within the next 30 days. My elderly clients would prefer a 60-day close of escrow with a free 30-day rent back to give them a total of 90 days, because it's going to take them time to be able to relocate, get things shipped to the storage, get their family out here from the East Coast to help them. Like we assume way too frequently what the terms are. And by assuming and by not having these conversations, you submit your badass slick offer, no contingency, fast close of escrow. You submit that offer thinking, look how cool I am. And then it immediately gets rejected because the client's had a heart attack trying to picture them being out within 15 days. And then you're mad at the listing agent because, well, why didn't you at least call me? Because I had a stack of 32 offers. I had to take my kids to soccer practice. My spouse is yelling at me because I haven't been home and I've been working 60 hours a week. Like, we got to stop treating each other like shit. We all have lives and we got responsibilities and we got kids. And at the end of the day, when you have that many offers and you're already 5, 6, 7% over ask price, a lot of sellers don't really care above and beyond that. They've got great offers and they don't want to lose them. So stop assuming, because I've had it happen to me. An agent didn't respond, and everything I'm telling you not to do is because at some point my dumbass did it and it backfired on me, and we learned from it and we realized that it didn't work. So find out exactly what that perfect offer would have to look like. And I always like to add this little piece. Lori, except for being the highest and best price, what would the perfect offer have to look like? Because when you throw that in, it removes the condescension from their response. Hey, of course, obviously it's going to be what they walk away with. Except for the highest and best price, what would the perfect offer have to look like? And sometimes you'll have a great agent who's going to give you a ton of information. They're going to give you a lot of stuff that's going to be helpful. And then you're going to have the dunces that don't give you anything at all. They're rude. They don't give you any additional information. But guys, this is where you have to get comfortable asking more. And again, you have to tread lightly because you don't want to be the pain in the neck. You don't want to be the jerk. You don't want to be the annoying agent. And I'll ask them, if the home's listed at $1 million, Lori, do you guys have anything over $1,025,000? And I'll just pick a specific price point. And she goes, yeah, our lowest offer is $1,025,000. Got it. Anything above $1,050,000. And I'm going to try to bracket them. And I'm going to try to find out where that sweet spot's going to be. And a lot of times an agent's going to tell you, oh, we're not disclosing that. To be fair to the rest of the buyers, we're just letting everybody know to submit their highest and best. Lori, I totally understand that. My clients are absolutely in love with this property and they're the perfect buyers for this home. They're committed. I'm an agent who knows what to do. I've got total control of my clients. They have the right expectations. I just want to make sure I'm not wasting your or my time. And I want to make sure that we're submitting in a zone that's going to get us responded to. And you just keep asking. And when you continue to ask, people will give you additional information. And our job is to identify where that is. And agents, the cool thing about them, most of them are terrible negotiators. Like, well, we're not going to disclose that information. And 3.5 seconds later, I've got their highest and their best price. You guys just have to be comfortable continuing to prod in a professional way that's not going to make them feel like they're being a jerk, and just saying, hey, I want to make sure I'm not wasting your or my client's time. I want to make sure that we're submitting in an area that's going to ensure that we get a response. And then all of a sudden they'll give you a range. And it's like, fantastic. Now we at least aren't shooting in the dark, and we have the ability to shoot in a range that's going to ensure that we get a response. So the triangulating the connection, we touched on that. We touched on stroking the listing agent's ego. The offer email, and I'm going to actually, let me move this to the end because I'll share my screen so you guys can steal it. We stole this from somebody, and I have no idea who. I wish I could give them credit, but somebody submitted an offer on my listing, and it was like the most professionally presented offer I'd ever seen. So I copy pasted it, and that became our new offer template. And it was unbelievably professional. The feedback that we get on this letter is so incredibly positive. And I'll hear people all the time, and I have agents that are on this call now. We'll submit the offer and be like, hey, we just wanted to let you know, we really appreciated how professionally presented your offer was, and you're the type of agent that we're trying to work with. The agent was brand new. The agent had no freaking idea what they were doing, and probably was an absolute nightmare in the transaction because they were brand new. But we submitted a really cool template that made the offer look like they were professional. And then I had an agent who here sells like $250 million a year. And he goes, here's an offer for 123 Elm Street. Let me know if you have any questions. Might as well put the middle finger emoji. Did nothing to build rapport, did nothing to professionally present. And that's a guy who sells $250 million in real estate. And it's just crazy to me that we're not putting a little bit more attention to detail on the areas that make people think like you're a professional realtor. The @gmail.com realtors and the @yahoo.com, that's crazy. You guys got to get a @brianbarber.com. You got to get a professional email. When you see the Gmail, whether you're professional or you're not, people look at it, whether it's right or it's wrong. People do look at it and they automatically assume that you're a onesie twosie agent. And that is not what you want in a market like this. Giving a bonus to the seller. In our market, it is very common and very typical for people to, seller is going to pay escrow, seller and buyer will pay their own escrow fees. The seller in a normal market will pay for a home warranty. That's pretty standard. Seller will pay this, seller will pay that, buyer will pay this. So when we have seller standard costs, we really need to make sure that we understand there's no such thing as buyer or seller standard. If there was, they wouldn't need you guys. They wouldn't need me. There wouldn't be a negotiation. We are in a market right now, and I don't know what your guys' market's like, but we are typically, back when this thing first started to shift, I had friends from all over the country calling me saying, what's happening in your market? Because they know what we experience is typically 3 to 6 months before they experience it. And when our inventory dropped to record lows, my friends in Fargo, North Dakota knew that they were going to be experiencing the same thing in 4 to 5 months, because it is, for whatever reason, we are typically one of the leading cities that tells everybody what's about to happen in their market. And I remember we did a video talking about this before the rest of the market shifted, and everybody said, you're an idiot. And I have all the comments and I saved them and I sent the haha emoji afterwards, because they felt it. The market came and it beat everybody up. So when we're talking about seller standards, there's no such thing. So for a home warranty, like my job as a listing agent is to make sure that in the event that your ridiculously inflated, crazy offer does not appraise, which could happen, and that's what we start dealing with, is at a certain point, we're just dealing with monopoly money. If I'm at 750,000 and I know the thing's going to appraise at 750,000, maybe market conditions might squeak me out 800. You offer me $1 million, I'm not going to give two shits. That is monopoly money. We are not playing in the real world. So what I need to look at is what is going to be the net proceeds at the agreed upon price. And if you have a home warranty and if you have all the standard costs like every other offer, and then all of a sudden Christian comes in and submits that, hey, even though you guys typically pay your own escrow fee, we'll pay that $1,200. We'll pay that $1,400. Hey, I know you typically will pay we'll pay that $2,500. When you can go inflate the net proceeds by paying an extra $3 to $4 grand, it can save a client, dependent on how quickly they secure the property, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 in the long run. So when you make these offers, stop doing the same standard BS that every other agent is doing. But here's the problem. You guys will go write a really strong, crazy good offer. But because that agent, who's either a onesie twosie agent, not very experienced, they're brand new, maybe they're over inundated, they don't have enough support, the kids are, all the problems that we already talked about, they rush through looking at offers and they just look at the price and they go good, good, bad, bad, and they're not looking at any of the actual details of the offer. So when you guys do this, you have to make sure that you're bringing attention to the bonuses that you're giving the seller. And you'll see in the offer letter that we present, we make sure to highlight the crazy good stuff because I want to make sure that they see it. Because when we do, I want to guarantee that there's visibility and there's transparency to it. I'll remind them via text. I'll send them a video via text. Like, do things that are going to help you stand out from the other agents. Don't do the, hey, got the offer. Please confirm receipt. Instead, record a video of yourself. Hey, I'm that agent that brought you the crumble cookies. I just wanted to let you know my clients are completely in love with the property. Hey, when you get a chance, please send me that photographer. Your photography was absolutely incredible because the house was really a piece of shit, but it looked great in the photos. And then you're going to text them that video real quick. And then that will stand out. Like, people will remember the little video, but they're not remembering this offer submitted. Please confirm receipt. Constantly be taking the steps that are going to set you apart from everybody else. I had a client that paid the buyer's agent's commission, which was a really generous offer, but this house was within walking distance of where they needed to be. The wife hated the fact that every single morning she had to get up to take her high schoolers who were always brats and not appreciative, and she just hated having to wake up. He said, dude, this is perfect. It saves my wife from having to wake up early, take the kids to school. This house, it's worth it. Let's pay the extra 15 grand and we'll get the property. There's certain homes and certain scenarios where people will be willing to pay for it. But if you as the agent don't tell your client what the options are, you're failing them as their agent. And when you tell them this, and again, this is the part that sucks when we're talking to clients and we're helping them understand, I want you to know that I'm not telling you, you guys need to be comfortable with any of this. It's my job to make sure that I'm giving you all of the tools that are available. It's my job to make sure that you fully understand them. And it's my job for the right property, when you're ready to use them, you're working with an agent who knows how to effectively get the result that we're looking for. So when I tell you these things, don't think that I'm telling you, you got to go waive your contingency, make your deposit non-refundable, do a 10-day escrow, waive your. I'm just going to give you all the tools, and for the right property, you and I will decide which ones are going to be appropriate for us to use in that negotiation. And the client will appreciate that explanation. But I see clients who are typically newer, they'll go explain it like, you got to do this, you got to do this, you got to do that. And now the client's upset because are they wrong? No, but they didn't use a softer approach that let the client know that it's okay for you not to agree with any of this stuff. So you just got to be super careful with how you present it. The next one, check and make sure that this is legal in your guys' city, or in your state. Escalation clauses. Here in California, people think they're illegal. They are not illegal. They are legal so long as you have an amount that it's going to increase by, and so long as you have a cap. And this is the part where it gets a little bit squirrely, because I could call Lori. Lori says, absolutely, I'm very comfortable and very familiar with escalation clauses. I call Christian. Christian says, absolutely not. I won't even consider them. Play nicely with Lori, play nicely with Christian, because they, at the end of the day, are the people that are holding the sack of the offers. And it's the way that they present it to their client, which will think that you're using an illegal method of negotiation, or you're using something that's not ethically correct. And you got to be careful, because if Lori says, yes, she loves them, fantastic, I'm absolutely going to use it. If Christian seems completely repulsed by the idea, don't be the bulldozer who's going to force it down Christian's throat, because I promise you it's going to result in you getting your offer rejected. Play nicely with the listing agent. They are our friends. We want to make sure that we are playing in their field, because they're the ones talking to the seller. Anybody need any additional explanation on the escalation clause? For an example, the house is listed at $1 million, and when you present it to the client the right way, you'll get a great result. Lori, we don't know what you're going to have to submit at, because clients are like, what's it going to take to win? I don't know. If I had a crystal ball, it would be amazing. I just simply don't. And I don't know how many other offers our competition has submitted on, because if you're going against 4 buyers who have been getting their butts kicked in this market for the last 3 months, they're going to be submitting far more aggressive offers than you are on your first attempt. So what we do is we offer an escalation clause. The house is listed for $1 million. We're willing to pay up to 1.1, but the second highest offer, or the highest offer, might only be $1,025,000. So why are we going to offer 1.1 if $1,035,000 would have got it? So you offer $1 million with a $5,000 escalation clause. And if you guys need the clause, I'll be happy to send it to you. But again, consult with your brokerage, consult with your state, your local division, and make sure that these are legal, because here they are. And it'll say, we submit the offer at $1 million with an escalation clause of 5. You can say 10, you can say 20, whatever you want to do. But we'll do an escalation clause, I would say at minimum, of $5,000 up to 1.1, because that means if David ended up submitting an offer at $1,050,000, my offer automatically goes to $1,055,000, and then Shelby comes in at $1,060,000, mine automatically escalates to $1,065,000. So by doing this, you're guaranteeing, one, that you're not going to overpay. By the way, what are clients and buyers the most scared of? Anybody tell me? There's 2 of the most common answers: missing out on a property and overpaying. So when you have your buyer consultation and your strategy session that we discussed in the very beginning, guys, my job is to make sure that we are not overpaying for a property. It's also my job to ensure that I'm giving you the upper hand, and I'm giving you the competitive advantage that's going to make you competitive for a property that you're not willing to lose. So let me tell you about the escalation clause. And you're going to explain to them, there's going to be a house where you're willing to pay the 1.1, but sometimes $1,045,000 would have been sufficient to secure that negotiation. Here's how I guarantee that we don't overpay. And you explain the escalation clause, and they're going to be amazed by how brilliant you are, because they've never heard of anything like that. And guys, those little steps are really what start to magnetize you to your clients, because you're using strategy and you're playing chess while everybody else is doing the same dumb shit playing checkers. Like, we need to make sure that clients understand the tools and the sophistication behind them, because the things to all of us that may make sense, for them, they're hearing it for the very first time. So when we can explain it in a way that's going to make them feel comfortable and they're not going to be terrified of using that tool because you've done a great job of helping them explain how you're going to keep them protected, they will allow you to control the negotiation. They'll allow you to tell them what they need to offer. And you guys will have the ability to start leading more of your clients to the finish line by using a little bit more of a sophisticated approach with a very tactful touch. Like that is the most important part to this. Free rent back. Everybody wants money in their pocket as quickly as possible. There's very few sellers who don't want to get the money in their pocket as quickly as possible. Secondly, a lot of sellers have to get the money in their pocket to allow them to relocate and get their upleg. However, if they don't have the money, getting a contingent offer accepted right now is damn near impossible. Like we can't get them accepted here. So if you offer somebody the ability with a lender who can close in 2 weeks, which we have them, but that requires us as agents to slow them down on the front end, put them in contact with the lender, make sure that the client fully understands, I need you to get this lender every piece of documentation that he requests within the next 48 hours, because he's going to fully underwrite and approve this loan. And in the event that we find a property that needs to close and close quickly, we're going to have that tool available to utilize when I promise you the vast majority of your competition will not. So when we can give them those funds within 2 weeks and then offer them a free 30-day rent back or 60-day rent back or 90-day rent back. And if it's going to be an owner-occupied primary financing, be careful with anything over 60 days, because that could change your borrower's financing to an investment. They have to pay a higher interest rate. They have to put more money down. So what you'll typically do is just do the 30 or the 60 days, whatever the requirement's going to be of the lender. And then after you guys close, give them the option in an addendum that gives them the ability to extend it for 30 days at a time. But it's a really, really great tool because everybody wants to close quickly, but not everybody wants to have to move and not everybody wants to have to be a tenant within their own home. And clients will get upset. Well, I don't want to give it to them for free. Totally understand. But buying the same exact house in 30 to 45 days could cost you substantially more than giving them $3,000 worth of free rent back. So we explain that to them and we let them know how it keeps them protected. In those scenarios, I typically will still require a deposit because I don't want to leave my client completely unprotected. So we'll give them a free rent back and just keep $5,000 in escrow. And if you're working with a good escrow company, typically they'll let you do that. So we got the escalation clause, we got the free rent back. Fast close of escrow. Guys, if you're talking with a lender and the lender tells you that they can only close in 21 days or they can only close in 30 days, it is our job to make sure that we are putting them in contact with the lender, because the worst part about this, we all know how important the lender is. Your clients do not. They're looking at interest rate, they're looking at out of pocket, which honestly, most of them aren't even looking at out of pocket. They're just looking at the interest rate. So our job up front, and I make sure to tell our agents to bring it up first and handle the objection before you even get it. Because we know if it's Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, Citi, any of the big banks, any of the big credit unions who don't give a shit whether I'm upset or not if they close on time or they don't, my lender will move mountains to make sure that they can close. My lender will drop a Thanksgiving dinner to make sure that we stay happy, because when they don't, they know if our client upsets or they cost us the deal, they know that you as the agent who feeds them their lifeline is going to be the one who gets upset. The problem is we don't approach it in the right way. So when you do your buyer consult, the way that I always like to do it is like, hey, I don't know who you're pre-approved with, but if it's Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, Citi, any of the big banks or any of the big credit unions, I'm strongly going to recommend you get a second opinion. Who do you use? And then they'll do, I use Bank of America. Okay, we need to get you in contact, versus the alternative, which is who are you pre-approved by? Oh, we have a pre-approval through Bank of America. And then you become the slimy salesman that's trying to pull it from Bank of America and try to give it to your preferred lender because they think you have a financial incentive. You will see people dramatically meet you differently with this objection when you handle it up front. I don't know who you're using, but if it's B of A, Wells Fargo, or any of the nightmares that you guys deal with in your market, list them in that list or any of the common ones. Say, if it's one of those, you're going to want to get the second opinion. Because we all know that at the end of the day, when they're looking at the numbers, they're looking at the interest rates. But if I have a lender who's going to cost me an extra $30 a month, but can close in 2 weeks as opposed to 30, I'm paying that extra $30 a month all day long because I know that term is going to be what dramatically can win me the negotiation without being the highest price. We know in this market, the highest price isn't the one that wins. Priya, go ahead.
Hi, Colton. My question is, I lost a deal as well as the client later because when he went to submit the EMD with his bank, which was Bank of America, the Bank of America guy gave him a better rate. It was 2021, so he gave him 2.99 or something, which was almost quarter point lower than my lender. It basically killed the deal. How can I prevent something like that in future and like not look like I'm trying to steer them in a particular direction and kind of make it look like, as you said, like make it more soft and.
I explained it to him the way that I just told you. Hey, in this market, it is not going to be the highest price that wins. A lot of the time it's going to be that, like, not only is out of pocket and not only is close of escrow going to be important, but at the end of the day, there's a lot of cash in this market. And it's my job to make sure that we can be as competitive against that cash as possible. And the only way that I can do that is by working with a lender who can get your loan fully approved before we even find the house. The only way I can do that is by working with a lender who can get our appraisal complete within 3 days, which most, if you go talk to Bank of America and you ask Bank of America, how long do you need to get the appraisal back? The answer is typically going to be at least 2 weeks. And then you can really push on them and you can really pressure them and you say, hey, we don't have 2 weeks. We got to do faster. Okay, if we order it on a rush, we can get it back in 10 days. So you have to go write out the scenario. And we actually have in our buyer consultation form. And if anybody wants it, email me and we'll send it over to you. But I have a graph written out that shows the differences in the offers and the timeframes, because my goal is to submit a non-contingent offer with the only contingency being like a 5 to 7 day inspection period. And then everybody panics because we have an appraisal, and then everybody panics and we have to get the loan approved. Yeah, we're gonna get it done within 5 to 7 days, whatever I put in for the inspection. And if we don't, and if for whatever reason we're not ready, we may be forced to cancel the agreement, but you're going to get your deposit back. But the most likely outcome is that's not going to happen. I have a track record with my lender who has the ability to get the appraisal ordered on a rush. My guy will even order it on it before we even give him the executed. So if I know I've got the executed back and I'll tell the agent, hey, we're about to spend $600 on an appraisal. Do I have your word that this house is ours? Because if so, I'm going to have my lender be proactive and order the appraisal now. And they'll say, yeah. And then we make sure that we'll get that done. But we got to make sure that the client understands it, because the only thing they're looking at is monthly payment. And I'll explain it to them. If the perfect home comes available in a fast close of escrow in a non-contingency offer with only a 5 to 7 day inspection period, no loan, no appraisal, that offer is going to win over your Bank of America 12-day time frame all day long, your 30-day close of escrow time period all day long. So at the end of the day, I'm going to ask you the question, is an extra $30 a month, which I'll bet you when you did the math on the difference in the interest rate, it was a very digestible amount when you broke it down into what it actually equated to on a monthly payment. So would you be willing to lose a property over $30 a month? And the answer is typically no. And if the answer is yes, they have every right for the answer to be yes. And then we go find them a different property. But most clients aren't going to say yes to that. And it's like, this is why we just need to make sure in the event we have a property that's going to have to close quickly, that we have a lender that has the ability to perform with those terms, because it could save you $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on the acquisition costs, because the people who we're trying to buy, they have a property. And guys, send it to me directly. I'm not going to have time to copy paste everybody's. So just shoot it directly to me and we'll make sure that we provide it to you. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Thank you, Colton.
Cool. I'm going to try to haul out so I can get you guys out of here on time. An on-time closing guarantee, because when you work with a lender who has the ability to perform very quickly, you're going to have a whole lot of agents kick back and say your lender can't perform that fast. Yes, they can. I have a track record with them, and I'll go show them all the properties that we've closed escrow on. And if you have this, fantastic, use it to your strength and use it to your advantage. But I'll go show them. We opened escrow here, we closed 12 days later. We opened escrow here, we closed 10 days later. We opened escrow here, we closed 14 days later. Each and every one of these was this lender. I totally get it. I know we all talk shit and we all pretend we can do these crazy, amazing things. Here's the proof that they have the ability to do this. And after this, I'll make an introduction so you can start using this lender too. And then you move forward, and that will make them more comfortable. but sometimes they're still going to kick you. And most of the time you can get your lender to make this guarantee. We will do a $5,000 closing guarantee. So in the event that we do not close on time, that they will either credit the seller back the $5,000. I've done it to where I said I would discount my commission by $5,000. You can do it to where the buyer agent agrees to pay the lender agrees to pay a $250 a day per diem. There's a number of different ways that you can guarantee an on-time closing. And hey, if we don't, we agree to pay $250 a day, $500 a day. And most of you guys should be able to find a lender who's willing to offer that on behalf of the client. And if you don't, go find one who will. Because if you go release a portion of the deposit, you go do an escalation clause with somebody who wants it, you took somebody crumble cookies, but during their open house, you've given them, you paid for the home warranty, you went and gave them all of these things, which I get it for a buyer sometimes is going to seem really daunting. But when you help them understand the math of what it would cost to wait an extra 2 to 3 months, a lot of them will be willing to make that investment or for the exact property to ensure they don't lose their dream house. So when you string all of these different steps together, it can dramatically increase the likelihood of you getting your offer accepted. We talked about this a little bit, but minimize the amount of contingencies that you guys are doing. And everybody makes this a sticking point. There's houses that I just am confident it's going to appraise. So I'm not going to make it contingent upon the appraisal. Well, Colton, but what if it doesn't appraise? Then I'm going to cancel within the investigation period, or I'm going to cancel after I read the HOA documents. And it's like, can you go back and renegotiate if you waive the appraisal contingency? Yeah, of course you can. Hey, Lori, totally understand that my client, they were willing to pay for this property as is. However, we did the inspection and we found this and we found that and we found this. And after consideration of all these things that's coming in and the appraisal gap that we now have to fill, my client's going to submit a request for repair, lowering the price down to the appraised value. And you'll have an agent sometimes be like, oh, I see what you did. I'm sorry, but we're allowed to. You guys, your client is allowed to renegotiate the contingency itself. And you got to be careful because we do not have passive contingency removal. Here you have to sign a contingency removal form. If you're in a state where the contingency automatically falls off after the clock strikes midnight, be a little bit more cautious on that because that's how it was for us in Nevada. And it was a lot more scary. Here in California, you can hold the damn deal hostage because they have to issue a 48-hour notice to perform. And it's a total pain in the ass and it's unfair for the seller, but that's just the way that it works. So minimize the contingency timeframes as much as you can, eliminate a lot of the contingencies that are unnecessary, get the loan fully approved. And if you do a 5-day inspection, 7-day inspection, just make sure you get the appraisal back, make sure you get the loan back, and you're going to maintain the same protections as a full contingency offer. And that is by far the most important part. The last one, if your client is submitting a 5% down, but they have 30% in reserves, that does not make them weaker than a 20% down with 22% in reserves. Like we as agents can be so stupid when it comes to financing because we assume the larger the down payment, the more secure the borrower is. And that is not always the case. A 5% borrower who has an extra 30% in liquid reserves has the ability to pay for repairs. They have the ability to stomach any unknowns. They have the ability to bridge the gap on an appraisal. That 5% down buyer that most agents are going to put their nose up at is so much stronger than the 20% down required because they're at their max DTI and they only have 22% to literally cover their down payment and their closing costs. And if they get a flat tire, the deal is going to fall apart because they can't afford the difference. That is not a more secure buyer. But when we submit these 5% offers, immediately the sellers and the agents assume that it's a weaker form of financing. So if you have the ability to submit it with a 20% down, submit it with the 20% down, you're allowed to change the down payment amount. You're allowed to do it. It's super easy. The other part, and again, check within your state laws. We're allowed to do that all day long here in California. And the other piece, if they don't have the money, because that's where this all breaks apart, like, well, if in the event that this home doesn't appraise, your client doesn't even have the money to cover the difference. And now you know you're dealing with a good listing agent. So reach out to mom, reach out to grandma, reach out to grandpa, reach out to anybody and everybody and explain to them, guys, we're never going to ask for a single penny, but I need a proof of funds and a gift letter stating that you're willing to help me bridge the gap in the event that we have to. That has won us so many negotiations because we just found the funds to show if there's a problem, we have the ability to bridge it, and it doesn't obligate anybody to do it. And truthfully, anytime we've done it, it's never fallen off the tracks. But if we allow that to be the reason that we don't get the negotiation approved, we're screwing over our clients for something that most likely isn't going to happen in the first place. So those are the 12 steps that we follow. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask, and I'll kind of wait here for a second.
So my question is, suppose a property is on the market for say more than a month, and when you call the listing agent, say like couple days into the negotiation, they say like, hey, I have 2 more offers than you. So it seems shady, like you had nothing for like 30 days and suddenly you have like 2 or 4 or 10 offers. So how do I navigate that situation without pissing off the listing agent and make it look like I don't trust him when I actually don't, but I don't want him to feel like
I
that?
mean, honestly, from a statistically probable standpoint, that's
Uh-huh.
probably what happened. We had all of our old inventory that was sitting on the market,
Uh-huh.
all flew off the market, and a lot of times with multiple offers. It does just happen. It doesn't mean that they're lying. At the end of the day, we're in a market where that's a very probable outcome.
Okay.
Evaluate the comps, evaluate the situation for the client, find out what they're comfortable paying, see what the real value of it would be, ignore the 30 days and assume what they're telling you is correct, because in this market, it's a very high likely outcome.
Got it. And sorry, I had a second question. Can I ask?
Yeah.
How do I deal with the situation where the client asks me for my commission back? It becomes very comfortable. So far, I've been like refusing, like flat out refusing in a nice way, like, hey, this is my income, like, you know, I have a family to support, da da da. I don't know, like each time it just becomes uncomfortable, and then I lose interest in the client. And how do I do it where it doesn't end up like, you know, ending the relationship?
A lot of the time, like sometimes, like I always will tell them flat out, no. I'm sorry, the negotiation is between you and the seller, but there's going to be clients who that's not acceptable for. And like you're going to have to tread lightly, because I'm going to be willing to walk away from some clients that you shouldn't be willing to walk away from. And it's like there's certain scenarios, and I've used this a lot. If I know I'm dealing with somebody who I'm flat out going to lose the deal over,
Right.
tell them, hey, listen, how much is it that you're requesting from me? And they'll be like, well, $5,000. Fantastic. If I'm not able to get you that $5,000 back during the negotiation and the request for repair, I'll guarantee that I'll cover it at the close of escrow. However, this is how I feed my family. This is how I provide. This is how I pay my bills. Let me go negotiate that same credit for you during the negotiation. And if I can't, I'll agree to pay it. And that's totally, it's going to be up to you. I honestly don't get it that often. We used to receive it a whole lot more, but the more that you can magnify yourself with the value and the strategy and the tactics that you are using, the less likely that that is going to be presented. Because when you sit somebody down for the strategy session, and because we all make the stupid mistake of showing up like Vanna White, here's the kitchen, here's the bathroom, look at the pretty views. That does not magnify you to anybody.
Absolutely.
People think buyer's agents do nothing but open doors. And if you show up and do nothing but open doors, you're going to get slammed with those objections every single day of the week. However, when you show somebody how tactical you are and the strategy that you're going to employ and how you will get them a far better outcome than anybody else, because you have the know-how, you have the experience, you have the strategy, you have the ability to articulate the market, you have the ability to articulate strategy and how you're going to keep them protected and how they're screwed without you, they're not going to ask. And if anybody else has a question, can you guys see that template? Honestly, if you want, what you can do, it's this one here. If you guys put it in my email, we'll send you the recording, we'll send you the offer template and a copy of our strategy session booklet. We'll send that out. Just make sure you send an email to me and we'll get that taken care of for you guys. Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend.